Welcome to the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand, a podcast for leading financial professionals, or rainmakers, and their teams that offer support for securing a successful future. From marketing help to staffing structure, listen and subscribe for actionable insights from advisors and skilled professionals alike.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rainmaker Multiplier on Demand. I am your host today, Matt Seitz, CMO at Prosperity Capital Advisors. A fun topic today, scaling brand beyond yourself. And I am joined today by Claire Dowdall. Claire, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, and I know we've actually covered this topic, I think, at the surface before, but we're going to be going a little deeper on this today. And I'm a fan myself on this topic, so a little fanning out today. But a little bit about Claire before we get started. Claire is an accomplished brand strategist and director of brand at Exactly What to Say, where she leads messaging and community engagement to help leaders and experts expand their influence through strategic storytelling and language. Her work focuses on how trust, credibility, and reputation are built in real professional context, and how capable people translate expertise into recognition and opportunity without self-promotion or hype. As a bold, straight-talking speaker and consultant, Claire supports sales professionals, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in turning trust into traction through powerful personal and professional branding. So, Claire, very anxious to get started into today's conversation.
Yeah, let's get into it.
And, personally, I like this one too, because we talk with our financial advisors a lot, and me personally with our marketing and sales teams about the importance in this industry, specifically in the financial services space, of the importance of know, like, and trust. People want to work with financial advisors that have that know, like, and trust. They're trusting their life savings, their retirement, their legacy a lot of times, with this advisor, with this advisory team. And so that's why I think this topic in particular resonates a lot with me, and I hope it resonates with our audience. And that's why, I can't wait to dive into some of these questions, because I hope that our audience I'm sure there's a lot that they're going to be able to pull from that, but I'm encouraging them as we get started to find those one or two nuggets through today's conversation. They're going to be able to pull from that to find that way to establish that know, like, and trust with their audience, whoever that is that they're going after.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see people applying what we're talking about. That's the idea.
So let's jump in then. So first question, many advisors may start as, the brand, but growth demands something bigger. From your perspective as the director of brand, what mindset shift is required to move from I am the business to I built a business that can scale without me?
I think a lot of this is about letting go and letting the work become bigger than you, and letting the mission become bigger than you. And in the case of the work that we've done with Phil, he's written the book, has a body of work, but he also has a very recognizable personal brand. It's about letting the work stand up on its own. And that's the same with the business. If you are the business, you are tied to it. And if you have an ambition to at some point maybe sell the business, and it's reliant on you being present, on you being visible, on you showing up every day, on you being involved in the operations of it, that's not going to happen, because when there's a person tied to it, it's very difficult to make the business stand on its own. So from a future facing perspective, from future planning perspective, it just makes good sense to think of it that way, almost before you need to. Because if your plan is you're just going to grow your personal brand and you want everyone to know you and you want to be famous and you want to be everywhere and you want to be on every podcast and you want everyone to follow you on LinkedIn, that's great. But unless you're pointing towards a business, if you weren't here anymore, there is nothing else here anymore. Or if your business relies on you just showing up all the time, what happens when you're not there? And that's quite almost a morbid topic, but it's something that, in financial services in particular, people are planning for the future. They're making some big decisions. So you've got to make that big decision for yourself, is when you're thinking about growing your business and growing your business brand, you've almost got to step aside, take yourself out of the equation, take any sense of ego away from it, I would say, and look at the business as the thing that is going to outlast you. And how are you going to make that happen? How does the business or the book or the body of work or the services, how do you grow them independently of yourself? And as I say, that's a good question to ask before you absolutely have to.
That's a great point. And I think that's a great way for advisors to think about that. Is a lot of times it's a struggle of how do you talk about life insurance and long-term care, which can be, somewhat morbid conversations to have, but you have to have those. Like you said, you have to think about that for your business as a succession plan of thinking and having that conversation with yourself or your team. So
and that's the thing, is that it isn't just your reputation, it's your business's reputation that you're building when you're thinking very specifically about brand. Yes, you want people to recommend you, but how are they going to recommend your business, your products, your services? How are they going to recognize the values that you want them to recognize in the business when you're not there? So there's that aspect as well. Every brand relies on humans, of course. It's all about every interaction, every touch point. But when people think of your business, of your practice, of whatever company you're looking to build, there needs to be a connection, a human emotional connection somewhere in there, which is quite hard to create. But the work needs to stand up on its own. And it's a challenge, but I think it's a worthwhile challenge tackling for sure.
All right. So you've spent years growing the Exactly What to Say brand. I shared the book earlier. You were sharing with me some of the swag that you have there in the background. Yep. But you've done that while supporting the personal brands of 60 certified guides that you work with. What are the biggest mistakes professionals make when trying to balance a strong personal brand while representing a larger company brand?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because quite often, and I'll explain quickly for anyone who doesn't know what a certified guide is. So one of the ways that, and this relates to your first question in a way, one of the ways that we've scaled Phil's brand is that in terms of the book is a very teachable book. It's very practical. It's got, the original book has 23 sets of words with practical application. So it's a very teachable book. And what Phil obviously realized from that is that he is but one man. He can only stand on so many stages. He can only stand on one stage at once. He can only deliver so many workshops, travel the country, etc. And so in order to scale his message and reach more people with the Exactly What to Say ethos and body of work, he decided to develop a certified guide program with people who were quite often speakers, trainers, consultants, sort of expert business owners. But quite often, some of them were independent, ran their own business, were consultants and did that independently. But some of them are affiliated with larger organizations, such as a real estate organization, or they're part of a corporate, maybe a mortgage company, those sorts of organizations. And that's a challenge in itself, is that they are not only representing the brand of Exactly What to Say, they're also representing the brand of themselves, their own personal professional reputation. And they have to uphold the sort of values and expectations of any organization that they are a part of. So be it an umbrella organization, or they're an employee, or whatever it may be. So there's a real balancing act there. And that's been so interesting to watch, because if you were running a large organization, and I've seen this fear before, is that if you allow people to independently build a reputation and build their own personal brand, you worry that they're going to outgrow their role, outgrow the company, maybe want to go and work for themselves, maybe want to go work for somebody else. And that's a legitimate fear, and I do understand it, but there's a flip side to that. Mm-hmm. And the flip side is that people are assets, which we know, every business is a people business. And as you mentioned at the beginning, that the know, like, and trust factor is critical. And that relates to people. And when an organization understands that its people carry the message, and all they need to do is just arm them with the correct information, the correct training, and then empower them to go share that in their own unique way and not worry about too much about what are you posting on social media, and is that, are we checking that off against the checklist of what's allowed, and inadvertently micromanaging the process. It's a real balance there. So it is that balance between empowering people so they feel like they can go and build things, be enthusiastic, share messages, be brilliant, shine, and build a great reputation for themselves, but also ensure that there are almost freedom within fences, that there are some expectations set and a balance to be achieved there. And sometimes it's down to the individual. There might be some people who really should not be out there publicly trying to build the brand. They're great at their job and they're great with their small circle of trusted clients, but they should probably not go to a networking event and do a 10-minute presentation because it's just not who they are. So it's also about looking at the individual and what they're really good at. But the guides we have found have really taken the work in very varying directions. And that's not necessarily just due to the industry that they're in. Sometimes they've gone all in on the industry they work in. We have a guide, and he works very specifically with accountants in helping them use the correct language in order to serve and find clients. That works perfectly for him. We have others who focus on taking the work and coaching people through it because they are skilled and qualified coaches. So it's in the way that they teach it. So there are various ways that they have taken it in a direction that not only honors the work, but also uses the skills that they have, the networks they have in a very natural way. And if you relate that back to a specific financial services individual working financial services, it's about they might have a particular set of clients that they look after. So they might work with corporates, they might work with individual mom and pop type businesses, or they may work with individual clients on their personal affairs. And it's just leaning into what they're really good at, leaning into those people, building that trust with them, but not being visible for visibility's sake. I think that's worthwhile discussing for sure.
Got it. Thank you. And I kind of laughed a little earlier on because you mentioned you said freedom within fences. I use a similar phrase with my team is freedom within a framework. Same kind of thing. Like you need to still give the guide rails around like what to keep that in, but people have to use their own voice and have that freedom and flexibility to build their own brand around that. So I love the way that you phrase that. So you ended on trust there, and I like that kind of going in our next question there. So financial advisors, they do worry or may worry about scaling their brand to a team could dilute trust because we stress the importance of that. How can leaders intentionally transfer credibility and trust from themselves to their team without losing that authenticity?
Usually this happens gradually. So there's that to consider. You don't just go from one person to a 50-person team. And if you did, the quicker you build, the more likely it possibly is that it would dilute. And it's about intentionality. As long as when you say you start off as an individual, if you can get very clear on what your values are and what trust means to you and how you view authenticity and how you decide to show up and what to you is best practice versus not so good practice, if you can get that really solid from the start, from being an individual, that certainly helps to set the foundation. Because if you have that, that's way easier when you start to bring people into your team, into your organization, for you to then communicate to them, for them to understand, because you've already thought through it. You've already lived that for a while. And then you're able to transfer that through not a Google Doc or a training, but through how you do things, how you talk to them, how you talk about the company, how you communicate with clients, what they can see you doing, they will imitate. Because if you don't demonstrate best practice, they are not going to know what best practice looks like. And I think when we think about the program we've created with the guides, Phil had an established reputation before any of this happened. And many of the people who have come to work with us already know the work, already know Phil, already understand how he works. And what we found is that they are a very similar, maybe not the best word, breed of people. They all are very giving, very generous, very collaborative, very much wanting to help others, and passionate about communication and all of the things that you would hope that they would be. And that hasn't been through us selecting them. That's been through them self-selecting and saying, how do I get involved in this? And that's how you attract great employees and team members, is that you show what your values are and they feel a connection to that. And they think, oh, I feel like I can align with that. And that's way better than you bringing people into your team and having to teach them how to behave and teach them what the values are, because they already have them. And there will just be that natural gravitation towards an organization that just demonstrates how they would want them to behave and what they want to align themselves with. So I think that is the most important part, is establishing that from the start. And when going back to the freedom within fences sort of subject, it's also about, we've demonstrated that when we've created brand guidelines. So when you're recording somewhere, because you have to record it somewhere, what your brand values are, right. It's part of the way of communicating it. It's not designed to micromanage and check off to see if they're doing as they're told. It's not about, this is what you have to do, and if you do it wrong, there will be a punishment. It's, we're empowering you to stand in front of this brand, represent it, feel proud of it, and feel empowered to know how to do that. And so we have this set of brand guidelines. We let them know, we don't want you to make mistakes, and we know you don't want to make mistakes either. So you know that you can use this logo, and that when you use the name, it's in this font, and this is uppercase and this is lowercase, and we have an R because it's trademarked, and all of those more visual parts of it. But it's also in the language that's used, the way it's introduced, how we do things, the way that frameworks are talked about, the way the procedures that maybe we all follow. And that empowers them. And we've said, we have not created these because we're trying to restrict you. We want you to feel confident to go forward, understanding what is okay and what isn't, because we know you don't want to make mistakes. I think that when you are growing that team, that as well as having that real clear picture of what your brand values are and how you want the company to be perceived, those together is what's going to keep it solid, as long as everyone knows what they're doing.
And I think that's a big aha moment for a lot of organizations and a lot of organizational leaders. One, because I think I have seen that a lot over the years, of not even just in this financial services industry, but a lot of smaller companies that say, we don't need brand guidelines yet. We're too small for that. And like, that's the best time to start establishing them. Even to you answer your previous question of like, start creating your core values. Your core values should be tied to your brand guidelines, like you just said. But even if our listeners or viewers right now didn't pick up on what you just said with the brand guidelines, it is a tool for everyone. The founders, in this case, a lot of you, the financial advisors, you know how to sell your company and your services, but the brand guidelines are there for everyone in the organization to be able to do that. We're all salespeople of the organization. We should all be able to articulate that. Some people aren't as comfortable. Maybe they want to be able to sell it and they don't know how. Yeah. And this is a tool for them to be able to do that. So I think that should be a big aha if you don't have those to establish those brand guidelines to be a tool for everyone in your organization.
And it's ever evolving. They will never be finished necessarily, because you will find examples and challenges and situations that come up. So you don't have to sort of create it once and then never again. It's ever evolving. So you don't need to worry about getting it right. It's just make it work for now, and then know that your brand will evolve, know that your messaging will evolve, and know that the needs of the people who are carrying your message may also evolve. So they need a little more information and guidance.
Right. So, Claire, with over 20 years in marketing, you've seen trends come and go. What actually matters today when building a brand that can scale, especially in an industry like financial services where trust is everything, like we've established?
I think there's a big pressure for a start to be everywhere. And I graduated in 2003, and there was no social media then. And we barely studied digital marketing. It was absolutely brand new. There was a bit about websites and, you know, the rise of the web and the internet, but there was nothing more than that. And so anyone who's sort of in this stage of their career with me, we are like the Zennials, as we call them, where we remember life before social media, and then we've adapted to life since. And so we've had to learn as we go along. And I think a lot of people are in that kind of place where they've had to learn things as they've gone along. They've got their qualifications, they know how to do their job. But in terms of actually building a brand and being visible, the challenge I see is that there is almost too many options, too many people to look at. If you're on Instagram and you're scrolling and you follow people in your industry, there will be people popping up doing videos with tips and important information on the industry and things you need to know, and making decisions about your finances and all of those things. And you can look at it and think, everyone's doing this, I have to do it too. And the same with, I'm sure a lot of people watching or listening right now are perhaps on LinkedIn. It seems the most obvious place to be in this industry. Mm-hmm. And even on LinkedIn, which is kind of I'd say the laggard in this, it's always been on catch up with the other platforms. It's not as, tech heavy and up to date as maybe we'd view Instagram and Facebook, but there is still a lot happening on there. There are still a lot of people talking the talk, writing articles, sharing videos, doing various outreach. And it can feel like if they're doing it, you have to do it as well. If they're recording videos, oh no, I've got to start recording videos, and I hate being on camera and I get really nervous. And that is the big challenge that I see, is that absolute overwhelm of all of the possible ways that you can communicate and be visible and build a brand and build trust with people and show people how much you can help them and what you know, and share. There's just way too much that you can just do nothing, or be so overwhelmed that you think, well, no one's going to watch my videos, are they? So that just, it's the same in any industry. It's the same when you work in marketing, and we have a million tools to choose from that you can't do them all.
So how do advisors then balance that, like brand visibility of, I want to keep my name out there, so when someone does need my services, I'm there, with that, you don't want to overwhelm and feel like you have to be everywhere. Like how do you find that delicate balance?
You have to decide what is your cadence for it. What are you happy in terms of time, in terms of commitment? What are you happy to do? And that is down to the individual. They will decide, okay, I could commit to writing one article a week and no more than that. Or they could say, do you know what? I actually really like recording videos. And every time I go on a personal in-person visit to a client, when I get back in the car, I'm going to record a little video and talk about the challenge that I'm helping clients overcome right now. And they could decide that they're comfortable with that and that's how much they can do. But you've got to also think about consistency. Now, I'm not going to say that every advisor needs to consistently do anything in particular because everybody's different. You have to decide what consistency means to you, but also what is your ebb and flow within that. And your ebb and flow is there are seasons in every industry. There are seasons, there are quiet times, there are crazy times of year. I'd imagine the end of the tax year is a crazy time. And it's about honoring those seasons and deciding that, okay, we have a quiet time in January. I'm going to write a few articles and do a few things that are going to help me be visible. And then when it's really busy, I'll just share them out over that time. I don't have to think about it. And that reduces overwhelm and it helps you feel in control. And I think that is the key, is that you decide what time that you can commit to being visible, to being on social media, or whatever that means to you. It might mean that you are physically in person, you're going to local networking groups, or however you gain business on a local basis. And you're deciding when that's going to happen for you, how much time you can commit, how much time you want to commit, and where those clients are. Because if you are looking for individuals, yes, they might be on LinkedIn, but they're not really on there thinking about what you're doing. They're on there thinking about what they're doing. And if you're out in person in the local community, of course, you're going to connect with a local market, homeowners, people with families, people deciding on what they want their power of attorney to be, like making all these decisions in life. You're probably more likely to meet them in a charity event or a local event where you can get to know people. So you have to decide where your clients are, first of all. It's a really simple thing. It's one of the bedrocks of marketing, is know who your client is and know where they are physically, where they spend their time online, and be there ready to help them see how you can solve their problem. Like, that is the basics of it. And if you can bring it back to that is the core of everything. The decisions for you on how you're going to show up, how you're going to build trust with people, all come from, okay, well, who am I trying to help and what problems am I trying to solve for them? And then you make your decisions from there.
Yeah.
And it seems really simple, but
I was just going to say, sometimes that simple answer is right in front of you. And it's
absolutely. And you build trust with people by showing that, have you done the thing before? Have you done it with someone like them? And have you done it recently? So if you can show them that you've helped them through that, helped someone like them through the same challenge that they have right now, and it wasn't 10 years ago, it was actually last week, they'll be like, I feel like you could help me with that too. And that is the basis of it. So it's not even, what do I put on LinkedIn? It could mean that, but that's not the decision. The decision is way more simple, which is almost annoying, because it's that simple, is it? Well, yeah, actually, it's that simple and it's that hard at the same time.
Yeah, the answer is, it can be that simple.
Mm-hmm. But we overcomplicate it because we're human beings. But we're also allowed. We're allowed. We can forgive ourselves because, as I say, there is so much information out there, so many people that you can see what they're doing. Whereas 20 years ago, you didn't know what all of the other local advisors were doing, unless you were going to the same, back then, networking groups. That was sort of the only place you would see what everybody was doing. But you couldn't see them posting online or creating videos. You didn't know what they were doing. So the comparison was very, very difficult. But now the comparison is infinite, overwhelming, and it halts decisions so much more. So if you can take yourself out of that a little bit and just come back to the basics of who am I trying to help and what problems am I trying to solve, that's going to help just cut out the noise much more.
Yes, I'm very much an advocate of data-based decisions, but I also do believe there is such thing as analysis paralysis.
Oh, 100%. As a chronic overthinker, I can absolutely relate to that.
A self-diagnosed overthinker.
Oh yeah, it's only because I care so much.
I like it. Well, I guess you mentioned LinkedIn, and obviously that's a big one in this industry. That, probably Facebook is another big one. So social media creates both opportunities, but also opportunities to overwhelm advisors and team members. What guidance do you give professionals who feel that they have to show up online but aren't sure how to do that authentically while staying with firm standards, but also compliance constraints, in this industry?
Yeah, and that is obviously an extra layer of pressure. It's an extra layer of pressure for the individual, but also for the company, in that they're worried about people showing up online representing them and saying something that they should not say. So that is a legitimate fear. And I think it's easy to come back to LinkedIn. It's similar with Facebook. Whatever you're posting publicly online is going to be potentially read by a lot of people, and they're going to make a judgment based on that. And that is both a blessing, because it gives you options. It gives you potentially the ability to reach a lot of people, but it also means that there are things that can go wrong. And the way to deal with it is actually to preempt it as much as possible. And it's back to, the brand guidelines type of conversation, but also if your advisors are well versed in what's the standards of the industry and the codes of conduct and practice and the types of information and claims that they can make, etc., then they know what they can and can't say. But also, the company has a duty to make sure that that's really, really clear. And clarity from the beginning is what is going to help there. And, yes, you will see other people sharing a lot online, and you might think, I need to do that too, and I don't want to get it wrong. And the way to not get it wrong is for, ideally, your company, or if you own the company, you've already thought through the different scenarios. You've decided what you're comfortable with. And it may be that you start off a little cautious, you test the water, see what the response is, and then you may get a little, I say braver, a little bolder. And as you get used to the sorts of responses you're getting and what's working, and a bit more comfortable with that extra visibility, then you take another step, and you might be a little more opinionated or share some of your own insights in a deeper way. And that's when people really will start to build that trust with you, is that you're not just there posting 10 top tips or 5 steps or the sort of surface level information that you see online. But as you go along, you'll start to create some depth of thought, and that's what creates the depth of trust. And that's when you'll get the real results, but it's gradual. So from a perspective of confidence, it is gradual. And as you start to get good responses, you'll quite like that and you'll want to do more. But the same with the company in the other direction. If they're seeing things that are landing well and they're seeing results, and you're able to say, I gained a client because of this, or I strengthened a relationship, or whatever it is, then they will start to build their confidence as well. So when it comes to that overwhelm, and do I need to be everywhere, and I'm seeing a lot happening online, I would almost say, just stop looking. Yeah. Or only look at the people that seem to be getting a good positive response, very good recommendations, see what the competition are doing, but only the competition that you would want to be like, not just everybody, and not sharing content just for the sake of getting everybody to start arguing and disagreeing and that sort of thing. It feels counterproductive. But it is about stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and knowing that people, it's one of the main foundations and pillars of exactly what to say is people do things for their own reasons, not yours. And it is that sort of, you can translate that into the sort of live and let live. They will be doing things for themselves. They're not thinking about you. So you need to essentially stay in your lane and look at why you're doing it. That enables you to immediately take focus off other people and really hone in on what is your reason for being visible, for showing up. Is it to gain more clients? Is it to deepen trust? Is it to establish yourself as the expert in a specific niche area of what you're working on? Whatever it may be.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, you said it really over the last kind of 2 questions that we've covered, but to really simplify, share stories of how you've been able to help clients on social media platforms where you know your clients are.
Absolutely. And I am evangelical about rebranding testimonials. Because to me, testimonials, when you think about if you read a testimonial on somebody's website or even a LinkedIn recommendation, it's someone saying how brilliant you are. It's very self-serving. It's very kind of awkward. And if you were to share that with somebody, or look at this person and they said I was fantastic, you should read this. It doesn't look great. It just makes you sound like you're just trying to show off, and nobody likes a show off. And the way that I look at it is that a testimonial is about someone saying you're brilliant, but an impact story, which is what I like to call them, takes you out of the equation and makes it all about the client. And when a client shares a story of the situation they were in before, perhaps there was some uncertainty in their life, there was something that they wanted to achieve, there was a problem they wanted to solve, a barrier they wanted to overcome, and they decided they needed to solve that, and they started to work with you. And during the process, you made it so much easier than they thought it would be. You found them the information quickly, you helped them make a decision they felt confident in, you seemed to really care about them as a person. And then the outcome was that they achieved this, this, and this. And they tell it through the lens of their own experience. You come out of the equation. The story is all about them. And that's how you build trust, because it's not about you. It's about, that is the absolute proof that you're able to say, I can help solve the problems for the people that I say that I care about. And then what happens is when somebody reads that story, they might be able to see themselves in it. They can never see themselves in a testimonial that says how brilliant you are.
Right.
There is absolutely no connection to them emotionally or as a person whatsoever. But when you tell a story, a human story, from the perspective of someone that could have faced a challenge that they're currently facing, that builds confidence and trust beyond anyone that's saying you're fantastic. So I love a story. I wish people would tell more of them.
Well, then I guess, Claire, we can end with this. For advisors listening or watching who want to begin scaling their brand beyond themselves this year, what's the first practical step they should take to ensure their brand lives beyond their business, and not just them personally?
Okay, there's a very simple exercise, first of all, that I think will help, especially in terms of what we've talked about. And we call it a 3x3x3. Very, very simple. And it could be that people have done this before, but they've just not done it recently. And it might be a good time to do that. And what I'd like to recommend is that everyone thinks about the 3 customers, the 3 people, the 3 sets of people that they would like to help. And then for each of those sets of people, I want them to think about 3 challenges or problems that those people are typically trying to overcome. And then for each of those challenges or problems, provide 3 solutions to those problems. So you end up with 3 sets of people, then 9 challenges, and then 27 solutions. And if you're struggling to know what to share online to be visible, take a look at those 27 statements about how you help those people. And you can turn those into content. You can turn those into stories. And that will help you to know what to say when you do show up confidently. It's going to be legitimate because you're helping solve the problems of the people that you say you care about. But you're showing how you do that, and maybe how you've done that for someone like them recently. And then they'll begin to see how you could do it for them. So that's the first thing that I would say as a practical step. In terms of scaling beyond themselves, going back to what I said before, is that even if you are an individual and you have aspirations to build a bigger business and bring more people into your organization, take the time now to really decide, what are your values? What do you want to be known for? And what would you like people to be saying about you and your organization when you are not there? Because that is the core of branding. It's essentially, what are the conversations that happen when you're not there that are about you? And you can start thinking about, well, we want them to say, I know that organization is really very clear that they are very work with the individual and a very human to human basis, or whatever that value may be. Do that now, future-proof yourself. And then that gives you options in the future. It gives you that basis that when you do scale, it will be done so much more easily, so much in a much more aligned way. It will happen much more naturally. And people, again, as we found with the guides, people will start to gravitate towards you, and you will attract better people that already align with you. So communicate what they are at each touch point, but demonstrate them as often as possible to the right people.
Fantastic. Well, Claire, thank you so much for joining us today. We will make sure we have your contact information in the description of the podcast, but thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, and I actually wanted to close as I was preparing for this. I know I held up the book. I went back through the book preparing. I was very excited for today, obviously, and I found a brief passage I wanted to read in closing from Phil's book that says, something for you to think about as a reader is that there are 2 types of people in this world: those who read books like this and do nothing, and those who put what they read into practice and enjoy immediate results. And I read that because I think in context of today, there are 2 types of people: those that listen to podcasts and do nothing, and those who listen today and take what Claire shared with us and get immediate results. So I hope that you took your 1 or 2 nuggets from today and take what Claire shared with us and go get immediate results at your practice. So thank you again, Claire, and thank you all for tuning in today.
You're so welcome.
Thanks for tuning in. This podcast was brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Never miss an episode by subscribing now to discover new resources and strategies. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help scale and secure your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable, but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.